Hey guys, what's up? So today I want to talk about something kind of fun, and that is a question that I get a lot, and that is, Craig, do you think I could become a realtor? And generally speaking, the answer is yes, but I would like to talk through some of the considerations that you should keep in mind whether or not you want to take the plunge into real estate. It's a very, very common conversation that we have, and I also want you to understand that whatever expectations or impressions you have of this career, there's probably a lot to it that is going to be different. And the reason I'm saying that is because that's exactly what happened to me. When I first became a realtor, I had no intentions of doing this full time. Circumstance put me in a situation where I had to do it full time, and for that I'm very thankful, but that's generally not how this goes. So I'm going to take you through both the positives and the, we'll say, negatives of the job, and you can determine if that's something that you think would work for you. Now, I will say that there are definitely going to be things on this list that you say that is completely not in my comfort zone. I couldn't do it. I don't want to do it, whatever the case may be. That may or may not be true. The bigger question you should be asking yourself is, could you see yourself doing those things with the rewards in mind? Because obviously if you can work through some of these things that aren't in your comfort zone, and this job is very different than most, there is reward on the other end waiting for you. So we'll talk through a bunch of that. As always, please, if you have any questions on this subject, you can always call me directly. I don't care where you're calling from or what market you're in, or if you're in New Jersey or not in New Jersey, or what brokerage you're considering. Give me a call. I'm happy to talk about it. It's something that I really love to talk about. A lot of agents have, different niches that they like, and I'm an agent that really likes to, as I say often, talk shop and talk about the logistics of real estate and the considerations and what makes a great agent. Okay, so let's talk about the positives. First and foremost, make your own schedule. So you are now an independent contractor as a full-time realtor, and I'm going to talk about this in the context of a full-time realtor. Of course, a lot of agents start off as what we call dual career, meaning you keep your current job and you start in real estate part-time, and that's a whole nother conversation, but we'll talk about this in the context of basically day in the life of a full-time realtor. So making your own schedule, obviously this is great. I know for me personally, I don't think I was cut out to be a 9-to-5 guy for a variety of reasons, mostly negative in that I'm very ADD and I have trouble with repetitive tasks, and the mundane stuff is hard for me, which in coming from a corporate career is a real challenge in your development as a corporate employee. And eventually what happened was I decided that I don't think the corporate life is necessarily for me, which is tough because I went to business school, got an MBA, and really thought that was my career path. Real estate was nothing more than, let me see if I could get a little side hustle going. I always kind of was interested in it. And the next thing you know, I'm a full-time realtor. So making your own schedule is obviously great. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the fact that you are going to work long hours. You are not going to work a 30 or 40 hour week if you're trying to be a high producing realtor. Not everyone needs to do that. You can make a very good living working a 30 or 40 hour week if you're very deliberate with how you spend that time. There will be weekend hours, there will be night hours, and you're basically always on call. There are times that you can choose not to take a call or a text or anything, but in the beginning that's very challenging because you want to do everything you can. You want to take every opportunity you can because in the beginning opportunities are limited. So in the beginning, plan on long hours. And I think what most agents will tell you is that eventually you can graduate to protecting those hours, deciding what hours it is that you are active, communicating that to clients, and putting some boundaries up. I do say, for the most part, early agents, eager agents, in the early going until you kind of get some momentum going, that you'll probably just be working long hours and on call 24/7. But that period doesn't have to last so long. I think for me, basically my first year was like that, and I was really trying to get something going. And what's good about that is you're probably fueled by the excitement. I mean, once you get a deal or two going, I haven't talked to any agents that get a deal or two going and start getting bored. Getting those first few checks is exhilarating, and it makes you want to get more. So in that first year, I think most agents would tell you if they are serious and they're really going for it, it's long hours and it can be, I don't want to say exhausting, but it's a lot. And it can be a bit of a strain on yourself or your family or whatever it may be. But I would say that it's pretty manageable. And I think that any career like this where there's a hustle aspect to it, that should kind of be your expectation. So that's making your own schedule. One of the positives. Okay, the second positive is that you can find your own niche. Now, what I mean by that, and again, this is another thing that I really hadn't thought about too much before I started in real estate, but there are so many different directions that you can focus on as a realtor. You can focus on investors who are looking for homes to flip or rent out or whatever the case may be. You can focus on foreclosures and short sales. You can focus on servicing military and first responders. You can focus on working just your sphere of influence or your friends and family, and we'll talk about that in a second. Or, a lot of people just find a niche within the community. For example, let's say that you're very involved with your kids' school and you coach. If you're a coach, great. You're going to meet a lot of people and you're going to have opportunities if you understand how to play that correctly. And there is an understanding there because you don't want to be a nuisance to people and you don't want to be begging for business and smell desperate. But finding that niche is very important for a few reasons. Namely, what is it that you enjoy doing? Is it that you love doing open houses, or that you love door knocking, or you love cold calling? And all of these things probably sound like I don't want to do any of those things. That's the kind of thing that I've mentioned that right now might seem insurmountable and impossible to consider, but I'm here to tell you that myself and a lot of agents find that some of those things actually aren't so bad. And this is essentially a job, so some of the things that you do are not going to be, the perfect thing. My most peaceful time as a realtor is probably either sitting in front of this camera, coaching, or just sitting in my office and, kind of planning the business and stuff like that. But obviously those aren't necessarily income producing activities. So that has to be met with a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily want to do. I will say I'm a very natural introvert. So most of the things that I have to do on a daily basis are outside of my comfort zone to some level. So managing that is important. And I will tell you that I've learned to manage it. And I've found a career that is the one that I love the most of all of my previous careers. And I've had quite a few. So finding that niche is something that you will develop. I think in that first year, you're going to just kind of put it all out there and throw fishing nets out to all the different areas you can think of. But eventually, I think that you'll find that you kind of settle into a niche of how you want to run your business. Okay, the third thing, and this is a nice one, is there's no ceiling on income here. This is literally one of the few careers where you can get a 100% raise from year to year. I'm telling you this because I've come pretty close to doing that myself. I've had 50 or 60% increases over year to year. And, I'm talking about my first year versus getting that momentum and then having a second year, which I think is more accurate of the type of production that I want to do. But that was a very large pay increase because my business was established and up and running and had some momentum. But there's a lot of changes you can make to your business to really increase things. And I'm here to tell you, I'm in year 3 here, just started year 3. Not quite third year as a full-time realtor, but my third year with my license, that I'm constantly tweaking things about the business. I'm constantly figuring out ways to do more business and make my business grow. And that is not going to stop anytime soon. It's a big part of what keeps me going. Even doing things like this are things I never considered to do, but as opportunities presented themselves to me and I kind of started to form my business and what kind of agent I wanted to be, a project like this YouTube channel are things that are presented to you and you take them. Now, not everyone has a YouTube channel as an agent. It's certainly not a necessity, but again, that's something that I chose to do because I thought it could lead to more income. So income is a big consideration in this. There is a lot of income to be had, and you just have to get good at finding the opportunities that are bearing fruit and finding the opportunities that are like, this is kind of a dead end. And even that is difficult. I think as the years go on, I've gotten better at it. But in the beginning, obviously, I was, as I said, just, reaching for everything. And that doesn't really work for agents. Agents do eventually start to settle into what works for them. Okay, the fourth thing is passive income. So again, this is not something that I thought too much about before I became an agent, but passive income is a huge part of what we do. Passive income. So if you are not sure what I'm talking about with passive income, this is income that comes in not necessarily as a result of something that I did immediately. It's something that I did in the past that got me an opportunity to get passive income. Examples of passive income. Here at Keller Williams, we have a few. So number one is obviously there's a recruiting aspect to our job, bringing in new agents and either having them join my own team or joining my brokerage. Or quite frankly, they could be out in California and they find me on YouTube and they say, hey, Craig, I love your channel. Would you mind if, we set up a call and I could ask you some more specific questions about my situation? And yes, of course, I love to do that. And that can evolve into very long conversations. And if that person says, you know what, Craig, you've said a lot. I'm going to join KW, but I'm going to do it out here in California. Great. That's totally fine. We can continue to have some sort of, coaching relationship, and I'll be happy to get you on your feet if you would do me the one solid of just saying that I introduce you to KW. So that will obviously put you in a downline situation. And that is, it's not a huge amount of money. The challenging thing is anytime that you're getting incentivized for things like recruiting, I think people outside of this industry get a preconceived notion that this is like a tacky thing or, there's hangups, obviously, anything regarding recruiting and downline. But it's a nice little extra bit of money per year, and there's logistics involved here. That's why I say per year. That is just a nice little check per person that is actually producing. That it just helps. It helps me with expenses. This isn't, I don't want to say you can't live off this money. We have people in KW that are literally living off this money, but I think for most agents, it's just like a nice little bonus. I think that it was said best to me by one of my mentors that the ultimate goal for me, and I think this is a great way to look at it, is to eventually just be able to pay my mortgage with my downline money. I'm nowhere near there right now, but it is something to strive for because it's reachable. It really is. And I think with a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, but particularly with passive income, is when you first get started, first of all, you probably never even consider this. But second of all is as you get started as a realtor and you start hearing about how this all works, it seems like fiction. It just seems like it's unattainable and it's so far in the future and all you're thinking about is getting your first couple deals. And the next thing you know, if you're a realtor that's up and running, is these opportunities are in front of you. You literally have someone asking if you want to get involved in some of the passive income opportunities. So it does happen very fast if you start producing. And other passive income opportunities for agents here with my group are ownership shares in both title and insurance that we have in-house here. Those are basically a small ownership in the company. And if you drive business to these providers, and of course this has to be, you have to be backed by great providers. You have a fiduciary responsibility to your clients. So you can't be driving them to businesses that, don't do great title work or don't do great insurance. But I'm very proud of the people that I work with, and they provide fantastic help to my clients. So I love this, but as a partial owner, I get incentivized with that as well. And last but not least, for me personally, obviously there are many more passive income possibilities, but again, within my ownership group is we have different real estate syndication deals that become available to us. So the building that I'm in right now, it was an investment opportunity that was presented to some of the top agents in my particular brokerage. So a bunch of us had the opportunity to buy shares in this building that I'm sitting in now, that my brokerage purchased. and we are all partial owners. So it is, again, just another opportunity and a nice little nest egg, or whatever you want to call it. Again, it's not huge dividends or anything, but it can be. In addition to the building I'm sitting in, my group is buying many, many buildings because we're expanding quite a bit into New Jersey, and more opportunities arise. But also we just have your traditional real estate syndication deals. Now, I won't get it too much into what real estate syndication is, but essentially it's a large group of, I shouldn't say large, it's a group of investors. It could be 10, it could be 100 that are purchasing shares in a investment opportunity. So a recent example would be a 40 unit building out of state. It could be in North Carolina, and it's got 40 units, and a bunch of us are getting together to purchase the building and then obviously rent it out or flip it or whatever the case may be, and we all mutually benefit from it. So these opportunities are fantastic. It gives you a nice little baseline underneath your income from selling homes that takes a little bit of the pressure off. It lets you kind of loosen your collar a little bit, not too much that you're going to affect your business, but just take a little pressure off, because if you're purely commission, that's a very tough way to live, because that commission goes up and down. But if you have these passive income opportunities, it gives you a little padding and a little ability to take a breath and enjoy what you're doing. Those checks coming in are very nice. They're not huge checks again, but they give you that little bit of relief. So passive income to real estate agents is huge. Okay, number 5, and this was a big one for me, is what do you do for a living? Well, you get to help people. You get to help people buy their first home. You get to help people buy, investment opportunities that they've always wanted to get their investment portfolio started, and now they're buying their first investment property and they're very excited, and you get to help. You get to help people that come to you and say, I don't know, I just don't think I can pull this off. I don't know if the financing I have is going to work. I have to sell my house first. There's challenges, and most clients, there's challenges. The majority of my clients have some challenge. The clients that we have that have 40% to put down and, perfect credit, and, they don't have to sell anything to buy their next house, and they're totally flexible on move-in dates. That is not most of my clients. Most of my clients have some considerations, and, that's part of what makes the job challenging and exciting. But it's important that you understand that you're going to have both of those things. But at the end of the day, you're just helping people. You're helping people pull off things that they didn't think they could pull off. Other opportunities are, one of the things that I participate in is the Homes for Heroes program. Homes for Heroes gives a incentive to any sort of fire, police, medical profession, military, former or active, that are trying to buy a house, and it's a program that gives them a little money back in their pocket when they're all done. It's a great program. It's super easy, and it really is nice to be able to hand over checks after people close on their homes. And over the past few years, I've given tens of thousands of dollars back to people that are heroes that I completely respect and appreciate what they do for the community, and to be able to hand that check over is fantastic. So there's inherent reward in what we do, because you're helping people accomplish a very big goal. I think every time someone buys a house, it's the biggest financial transaction of their life. Even if they've already purchased homes, usually they're buying their first home, and then they're buying the upgrade, and then they have to buy their place that they're going to end up in retirement, which is, a big consideration. Where would I like, my golden years to be spent? So that is extremely rewarding when it works out. Sure, there are some times when the challenges are a lot and it's very stressful, but at the end of the day, to get that kind of reward out of something, there's going to be those stress things that, take away from the process and can create tension, but at the end of the day, everyone's very happy. So again, a very rewarding job that, in my prior corporate career, I can't say that rewarding was one of the words I would use about that career. Okay, and the last thing is an interesting one, because you're going to hear me talk about the opposite quite a bit, but it is the fact that your availability is probably actually going to go up. Now, what that means is once you get this thing up and running, you have the ability to just take days off when you want. You have the ability to plan vacations, whenever you want. You have the ability to be available immediately. So, like for me, it was very important that I was available to my family. I wanted to do coaching. It was literally one of the things I envisioned once I became a full-time realtor. I said, you know what? I think I'll be able to stay around and coach my kids. I would have never been able to do that in my old role because I was commuting. And before I was commuting up to Livingston, which is about an hour from where I'm sitting, I was flying. I was gone Monday through Thursday, and I would come home Friday, and then I would have to work on Friday. My availability was extremely limited. It was one of the biggest stressors of my corporate career. Now, I still have to work long hours, but I get to choose those hours. So I get to do the school drop-offs, I get to do the pickups, I get to do the coaching. I have a very specific gym routine that I've gotten into over the past few years, and I really appreciate that. Again, as someone who's very ADD and very, has trouble with just the mundane aspects of life, that's so important to me to be able to just have, the day that I want. There are days, I will be the first to admit this, there are days where I just wake up and I'm like, you know what? Today, I just need to take a mental health day. Now, listen, if you had a corporate job like me, I'm sure you took a few mental health days in your career, but it's a little bit different. This is just your choice. Like, you don't have to call anyone. You just get to take that day that you need. I've taken a day to just go skiing or golfing or whatever, just to kind of get my mind right and take a day to myself. That's something you can definitely do in this career, and that is fantastic. So our vacations are planned out months ahead of time, and those are, I'm going. There's no stopping it. And in terms of hourly and, for my kids and whatever else I need to do, I'm available. So that is definitely a positive. Okay, so right about now you're saying, Craig, this all sounds fantastic. I definitely would be interested in talking more about becoming a realtor. But hold on a second. Let's talk about a few of the challenges. And again, I think it's important to talk about these so you have reasonable expectations, especially if you have a mortgage and you have kids and you have a family. If you're a little bit younger and you're, still living at home, or you have manageable rent expense or whatever the case may be, this is a very different conversation. But maybe not, because if you're younger and you take, a hard exit off the freeway of life and decide to do real estate and it doesn't work out and you're young, that could have a pretty big effect on your future. But, for someone like me who started this when they were in their late 30s with kids and a mortgage and, a corporate income that, my family needed, we couldn't just stop getting income from me. These are some important considerations. So again, I just want to say that you will find that you can manage these things, but it's still important to have some expectations around it. So let's get into some of the challenges. Okay, so the first one is something that us agents always say. It's a big kind of coaching mantra and something that you are constantly reminding agents, and that is, don't be a secret agent. So you have to let people know that you're a realtor. And this is something that I think early on is very uncomfortable for people, but you'll find that it becomes very easy. And it's easy for a few reasons. Number one is if you're producing and you like your work, then you're happy to tell people about it. Number two is it's super easy to tell people. I mean, you walk up to anyone you don't know and you say, hey, Steve, it's great to meet you. What do you do for work? And, Steve tells you what he does for work. And what's Steve's next question? Craig, what do you do? So it's a very easy conversation to initiate. I think that it's easy to have the impression that you're constantly telling people and handing out business cards and stuff like that. But it doesn't have to be like that. It can be very organic. And once you figure out how that works, you can run with it. Before you figure out how it works, it may be a little uncomfortable. But listen, there's tons of coaches and mentors. And like I said, if this is something you think you're interested in, I'm available to you. I tell people that come in through me and end up being in my downline or in my brokerage or whatever, that I'm always available. I love to talk about this stuff. I love to help people succeed. And there's plenty of meat on the bone to go around for everyone to have success. So don't be a secret agent. Okay, the second one is one that I think people really don't look forward to, and that is dealing with your, what we call a sphere of influence, or your friends and family. You are going to have to let your friends and family know early on that you have decided to take a detour into a career of real estate and you are available to them to conduct business. And if you're a good producing agent, best practice is to continue to let them know that you're still in it. Because one of the worst things for an agent is to find out that you see a friend you haven't seen in a while. You talk to that friend, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What's new? Oh, man, we just bought a house out here in Pittstown where I live. And I say, oh, man, you should have given me a call. Oh, you know what? I didn't know you were still doing real estate. That's great. But guess what? I missed out on that one. So, sphere of influence is a big thing. And there's strategies here so that, again, you want to make it organic. You don't want to be forceful. You don't want to be tacky. But you have to have some method with letting your friends and family know that you're still in the business, you are available to them, and hopefully successful and good at what you do so that it's an easy decision for them to do business with you. So get comfortable talking to friends and family, and as you get into this career, you will get a lot of guidance on ways to do that. There's tried and true methodology here. You don't have to be, I think what people envision is a very pushy and nuisance realtor, and that is, you don't have to do that. So sphere of influence. All right, so the third thing is an interesting one because I think it's the easiest way to get started for a new agent, and that is open houses. Now, why did I put it in the challenging section? Like, it doesn't seem like open houses, it doesn't seem like a huge deal, but it depends on what kind of person you are. And there's a few challenges here in regards to open houses. So first of all, if you're a natural introvert like I am, you will find that, standing around for 3 hours and just talking to strangers, for that entire time is maybe not ideal. But it's not too bad. I think you'll find that it's pretty manageable. And for the most part, 95% of the people that are coming in are super nice and it's, pretty manageable. The way this works for agents is obviously people come in, they don't have a realtor and they may or may not buy the house that you're standing in, but they have to buy a house. So if they don't have a realtor, it's a great way for you to meet them get comfortable with you, and then go out and buy a home with you. It's great for starting agents because the surprising thing is most people don't really ask how long you've been a realtor. It's a very common question that we get from new agents is like, well, aren't they going to just immediately say like, well, how long have you been doing this? And your answer could be, I've literally never had a transaction. But no one asks, and you have the backing of a team. At least you should. It's an important consideration when you're choosing a brokerage that you have a good team behind you and good coaching and mentorship and everything else. And again, not to plug KW too much, but I think that's a big part of what KW prides itself on is having that infrastructure in place. If there are endless resources for coaching and mentorship too. You can go on Reddit, there's Facebook communities, there's all kinds of areas. And I'm very active in all those areas. And I think you'll see in some of my future videos that I bring some people on that I know from all over the country that are fantastic agents. So there's always ways to, get better at this. And for a starting agent, that's really important because you want to get those best practices in place pretty quickly. And that is all available to you. So open houses, great way to get started. Might not necessarily be your comfort zone in terms of talking to strangers, but also they're always on weekends. Well, I shouldn't say always, but mostly on weekends. So Saturday and Sunday afternoons, you'll have to go do some open houses. But, the nice thing is if you're working in proximity to where you live, my open houses typically are 1 to 3, sometimes 1 to 4. In this market, I've mostly been doing 1 to 4 because we need the extra time. But, for me to, leave my house, I don't have to wake up early. I go and I get to my open house and I, stand around for 3 hours and help people out, and then I'm done. And it's not so bad for a weekend. It's, definitely not my preference to work on weekends, but it's manageable, and it enables me to do other things and not necessarily, during the working week, I'm not literally working 40 hours a week. I have plenty of time to, enjoy some quiet moments. So, if I have to put a couple hours in on the weekend, it's not a huge deal, but open houses can be somewhat of a challenge. Okay. And the fourth thing is something that I've already touched on a few times, but here's the inevitable fact is you're going to work long hours. And as I just mentioned, working long hours doesn't mean that you're literally working for 12 hours a day, but from the time you start to the time you finish could very well be 12 hours very easily. And you took some breaks in there, and there was driving and quiet times. When I'm driving around a lot, I like to listen to podcasts, so I have a lot of quiet moments, like no one's looking for me. And, I might work a 12-hour day, and at the end of the day, when I get home, I'm pretty tired, but, it's a little bit different than, if you work a corporate job and you have a 12-hour day. You literally have a 12-hour day. So there are going to be long hours, and that can be challenging. I think, again, with the rewards that you'll see pretty quickly, those long hours don't quite burn like they might in my prior careers where I had to work, literal overtime, or, as I got later in my career and just had, salaried, management level jobs, you don't work 40 hours anymore. 40 hours, at that point is, something that passed, long ago. So you will be working some long hours, and that can be a challenge. Okay, next is phone time. So you got to get comfortable on the phone. There may be ways to conduct real estate without being on the phone all the time. But if there is, I know I personally and a lot of agents that I collaborate with and mastermind with, we are all on the phone all the time. Really the secret to real estate is once you kind of learn how to be a phone jockey or sub it out, which that's a whole nother subject, but as your business grows, you could essentially not be the one on the phone, but you're still paying for the one on the phone. So long hours on the phone. That means two things. Number one is that you're constantly on call. So you get calls at random times and you have to spring into action very often. It's either a current existing client that needs to go see a house very quickly. Your listing client is calling you because something's happened at the house, or someone didn't show up for a showing, or an inspection didn't go well, or something. Or it could just be the biggest part of this job, which is something that I think no one thinks about before this, which is lead generation time. So that's that time that you set to keep your business running and fuel your business. The fuel for this business, as far as I know, is phone calls. So what kind of phone calls you're making is something that very much becomes your choice. But at the end of the day, you're going to be on the phone a lot. I think in a given week, as far as lead gen goes, I make anywhere from 50 to 200 calls. And I have a very specific marketing system that I use in a way that I acquire my leads. So that is actually not too bad. When earlier in my career, before I had all this infrastructure in place and I was just doing cold calls, I could easily be making 200 calls a day. And that can be pretty brutal, to be perfectly honest with you. But again, it is all part of that hustle aspect to this job, that it should be an expectation that at some point you're going to have to take those punches and do those things that to you, as we sit here right now, sound very painful. So depending on what your business evolves into, that can evolve in a way that is much more manageable, like my business. And those calls are pretty pointed. Another big thing at KW as part of our coaching program here is working that sphere of influence. And there's some big real estate coaches out there. One that comes to mind is Brian Buffini, who really touts this career of really just working your sphere of influence, which as you're a realtor over the years grows quite a bit, because not only now do you have friends and families, but you have past clients and just people you've met over the years. And you can really just work that database of people, and that is your whole business. You're not getting paid leads. You're not fishing for leads the way that I do, which again is proprietary information. But I do have a very specific way that I do it, and there's a lot of agents out there like me, if not locally, there are definitely at the national level that do it just like I do, and get comfortable with the phone, because you're definitely going to be on it quite a bit. Okay, and last but not least, the thing that I will say is that it's a job. This is a job, and it's exciting, and it's a hustle, and you're an independent contractor, and if you get this up and running and you're enjoying yourself, it's a great career, but at the end of the day, it is a job, and you have to do those things that can be slightly painful or outside of your comfort zone or in odd times or whatever the case may be, and you have to do it because it's your job. And if you want to be successful and continue to be able to do this, then you have to take that job approach. And this is something that I was told early in my career, and I heard it, and I understood exactly what they were saying, but I was so in love with what I was doing and the excitement of getting it going that I didn't really think about it too much. But I would say at this point, the third year of my career, I totally get it. It is a job. There are things that I have to do to keep my business successful that are structured, that are time blocked, that are a job. And I will tell you until I'm blue in the face that I am perfectly okay with that at this point in my career. There is no career that I love more. I hope I get to do this until the day I retire, and that is perfectly okay. So it is a job, but hopefully it's a great job. Okay, guys, so I've already gone on way too long about this. I'm looking at the timer on this and I'm thinking, man, no one is going to get this far. But listen, if you did get this far, I really, really appreciate your support. If you wouldn't mind, please hit subscribe and keep an eye out for future videos. As I always say, you can always contact me, text me, Facebook message, email, whatever the case may be. I'm always happy to talk to anyone who's considering this as a job or just wants to talk about, how I work as a realtor, or, mentor conversations or mastermind conversations. Very collaborative. I love inviting those conversations. So please feel free to contact me. And most of all, I hope everyone's doing well, and I will see you soon. Take care.